Now let's move to the ways in which we can change pre-service teacher education to make it more relevant to this changing student population, to better prepare tomorrow's teachers for the classrooms and students that they'll encounter, and also, obviously, those of us who work in in-service education as well, to help teachers who are currently in the schools. I have to begin by saying that all classrooms are unique contexts, that I'm not suggesting that there is any set of best practices which transfer to all environments, but it is important for students to have some sense of the kinds of things that they should try, the kinds of things that they should expect, and to be able to be flexible, adaptive when they go out into their schools. Here are some of the things that teacher education programs have done. They've added, as many of you have, special segments on second language learners or second language reading and writing to their traditional educational theory or methods courses. In other words, they don't just teach the teaching of reading and the teaching of writing, they include in that the teaching of reading and writing to diverse students, to students who speak English as a second language, to second dialect learners, and the like. Creating special courses on the linguistic, racial, ethnic, and cultural diversity. In other words, creating courses that would do the kinds of things that Louis Small has been doing with his Funds of Knowledge and Cultural Capital, helping students to understand what this diversity is, and also helping them to see how that is a positive thing in terms of curriculum design and assessment. In other words, being able to actually bring that into the classroom and use it, whether it's stories from home, whether it's traditional ways of using mathematics, whatever it might be. Infusing diversity as a central theme. This is what we have done throughout our undergraduate teacher education program. Diversity and technology are themes which are in every course in the program. The expectation is that no teacher who goes out into the schools will be able to function in tomorrow's school unless they understand that diversity and unless they're able to access a range of technologies and make students able to be literate in those technologies in their instruction. Involving prospective teachers in activities that bring them closer to the community in which students live. I remember that I took some teachers from one of the schools out to the district in which their ESOL students live, because in this case the students were bused to an ESOL center. Most of the teachers had never been anywhere near those students' homes. Now I know we're all very busy, but if we don't know where kids come from, it's a lot harder to teach them. And so making sure that in our teacher education programs that students have to spend a lot of time in practical experiences that are outside of the classroom, in early observation experiences, in tutoring of students, perhaps a language minority student, and in actually going out into the community. Involving prospective teachers in an immersion experience. There's a wonderful program in Canada in which all teachers were asked to learn one of the courses through another language. In this case, it was educational psychology. Pretty hard to do, but it's a real acid test. If you have had to learn difficult concepts through another language that you're still studying, then you're going to be much more aware of what that means for other students. Adding ethnic studies or multicultural literature and history and culture to the core curriculum for all students. A lot of universities are changing that Western Civ tradition to be, in fact, an America's tradition. Who are these kids who come to our schools and are living in our communities? Where do they come from? Shouldn't that be part of the core? Clearly, in teacher education, we should make sure that students are introduced to multicultural literature, to the literatures of the Caribbean and of Africa and of Central and South America, since this is where our children come from. Creating linked courses, and I'm going to talk in depth about a program in which we brought together practicing teachers and teacher candidates to work together in a variety of capacities, including taking classes together at the university, or actually classes on site that were university graduate courses. And most important, perhaps, but really hard to do, recruiting prospective teachers from among minority and bilingual students and members of the community. Obviously, the more that we can create outreach to those communities, encourage these individuals to become teachers, the more diverse our teaching force becomes. And then we have a lot of people in the school who can serve as resources. And for in-service teachers, a variety of approaches that have been used and that I've written about and lots of other people have as well. One of the best, perhaps, is joint or peer observation, where two teachers who share common students observe each other, and they don't observe each other to evaluate each other. They observe each other to learn what kinds of things are being done that affect that student, what things are positive for that student, in order to be able to learn new techniques and try out, as well as to understand each other's sort of areas of their or disciplines and being able to better support that. Collaborative planning and curriculum development, thematic instruction, as we've talked about earlier, but bringing together teachers to work together on thinking about how we can make these connections across the curriculum. Team teaching, as in that middle school example that I provided you with. Teacher research or inquiry groups. One of the most effective programs that I've worked in is a group of middle school teachers who wanted to actually do research about their English language learners and the effectiveness of a sheltered instruction program they were providing. Teachers reflecting upon their own experiences, conducting action research, getting together to talk about it on a regular basis. I found that works very well, but especially if there's a university professor that meets with them or somebody who makes sure that this thing moves forward, because in the day-to-day pressures of teaching, sometimes that research gets sort of left behind. And then, of course, graduate courses or extensive professional development for current teachers and, in some cases, administrators and prospective teachers. 3 very different projects that have sought to extend information and provide professional development to teacher candidates, to practicing teachers, and to university faculty. They are briefly one, Project We Teach, which is a university school district partnership, a kind of professional development model to improve immigrant educational achievement, English language literacy, and participation in college, a project I directed here at UMBC. The second is an interdisciplinary language and science teacher and social study teacher education course at the State University of New York, SUNY Stony Brook. And the third is Project LEAP at Cal State LA, which was a university-wide consortium of faculty who teach general or core education courses, working together to make the courses accessible to language minority students and to improve the academic achievement of students. Also, as a byproduct, to increase the confidence of teachers of being able to teach these students. Let me talk first about Project We Teach. This was a 5-year collaboration funded by the Mellon Foundation of UMBC's ESOL bilingual program, an MA program, and a public school district that is among the most diverse in the U.S. The goals of that project were to increase English language literacy and academic achievement of immigrant students, and to also increase the likelihood that they would consider college and in some cases attend college at some point, if not immediately upon following high school. The special focus in this program was on what we were calling underschooled, meaning children who had had less than 3 years of prior education or had had substantial periods of interruption. Few of the teachers in these schools had little preparation for teaching the diverse students that they had in their classrooms, and almost none had any preparation for teaching students with limited literacy. And I think we need to think about this as teacher educators. Increasingly, our secondary school teachers are encountering students, and not just language minority students, but students who really have gotten through the elementary grades without any real mastery or understanding of literacy and of literacies in their broadest terms. The kinds of things we did in Project We Teach. We identified what teachers in the schools felt they needed to know. We developed graduate courses, which we offered on-site, focusing on those things. One was called Strategies for Improving the Teaching of Linguistically and Culturally Diverse Secondary School Students, co-taught by a faculty member from the school district and a faculty member from UMBC, bringing to bear the kinds of things we've just talked about, those sort of 4 knowledge areas, but particularly focusing on what can the math teacher do, what can the science teacher do, and bringing in teachers from the school district who had successfully taught these students to be able to demonstrate some of those strategies. A second course was a course called World Englishes. We have an increasing number of children who come from the Caribbean or West Africa who speak varieties of English that are sufficiently different from the English of our classroom that they both seem to speak English and not to our teachers, when in fact, of course, what they're speaking is different varieties of English. Right now, it's our ESOL teachers who have these students clearly all teachers need to be understanding about the range of linguistic diversity and within a language as well as between languages. And so this course was helping to understand the varieties of English. And secondarily, since many of these students are also the students who are underprepared or underschooled and need literacy, how do you teach literacy when you're working with students who also speak a variety of the language of instruction? This would be very useful with other dialect speakers. And then other courses that, as I indicated, that teacher research course. In these courses, while they were primarily for teachers and administrators in the schools, they also included some of our graduate students. I need to add here that our students are largely part-time, and we still were able, under those conditions, to get them involved in a variety of ways with the schools, to work in after-school tutoring and a weekend math club, to assist with summer school, to over the course of the summer work with an ESOL graduate student, work with a social studies teacher or a science teacher to adapt the curriculum, to provide a parent involvement program in the evening as outreach to the community, and in some cases to actually co-teach. The results were incredible. The prospective teachers are clearly much better prepared to teach in diverse and challenging schools, and I have a number of quotes from my students telling me that had they not had the experience, that their initial response upon going out to schools would have been quite different. Practicing teachers gained valuable insights, and clearly having another adult in the classroom or another adult helping to have that kind of assistance was useful, as well as just to have the refreshment of having a younger or a new, when I say young in terms of experience, somebody to provide some feedback. University faculty were much more aware of the realities of schools today. And when I talk about realities, these are among the most challenging schools you can imagine. Well, not surprising, because language minority students are often in those schools. One of the schools had 4 principals in 5 years. Another school had a 50% teacher mobility rate. That means every year less than half or about half of the teachers would not be coming back. And one of the schools had a 50% student mobility rate. Now, it's extremely difficult to engage in educational change when with these kinds of demographics. Yet, one of the things that we were able to do was to be able, through these teachers and prospective teachers, to begin to build a kind of stability within them, which would enable them to be able to cope under these conditions. And clearly, everybody had a much better understanding of this diverse population. The second program is that program at SUNY that I was talking about. And this was, again, in response to student diversity in the schools and also to the high numbers of language minority students nationally who score below the norms in math and science. And so what SUNY did was they established an integrated language, science, and social studies program, and they allowed ESOL teacher candidates to become more knowledgeable about the academic demands of science and social studies, and the reverse for the prospective social and studies and science teachers. They worked together. First, they produced things, sample lessons and activities which they demonstrated for each other, and then they actually jointly worked on a unit which integrated all 3 of the disciplines. It's led to a variety of innovations in the program. There's now an undergraduate course called Language and Science, which is co-taught by ESOL and science faculty in the School of Education. They have a number of activities that have been developed for their campus discovery lab, and schools bring students in, which then the teacher candidates can work with these students. They use the campus biotechnology lab. The students have developed a newsletter. There are workshops for the family. A variety of interdisciplinary coursework and field work has benefited all teachers and teacher educators and teacher candidates. Again, this is a kind of integration across the curriculum, but also an integration across the levels of schools. The last is Project LEAP at Cal State LA, in which, to give you some demographics there, 70% of the incoming students are language minority at Cal State LA, and 80% of them have required, at least in the past, developmental reading. So they had some issues that they needed to address, and one of the things that they attempted to do was to pair ESOL instructors with peer group study leaders, with students who had been successful in the core courses, and worked with them and content area faculty to adapt instruction in these general education courses. They used an adjunct approach, which I talked about previously, where the English language learners were grouped in another course that was a kind of a paired course to be able to work on language, but they were in classes with English-speaking students. And the program in the fall, the content faculty, the ESOL faculty, the TESOL faculty, and the study group leaders met to develop activities, to modify the curriculum. The spring quarter, they actually the team taught the courses. These successful students working with the content area teacher and then the ESOL teachers and the study group leaders working in the adjunct course. And then the third quarter actually developing a manual which described the strategies that they had used. The results, students much better prepared, they did better on exams, they had better writing in their papers, the faculty were better prepared. Many of them went on to mentor other faculty in their department or their own GAs with what they had learned in the project. And lots of them have actually written about their experiences in journals in their own fields, the history teacher and the Journal of Physiology and the like. Other faculty heard about the program and wanted to be involved at close by campuses, and so the project has actually extended outside of Cal State as well.